Hello everyone, welcome back to Cliff Soccer Zone. Today we're going to talk about the 1-1 draw between Manchester United and Arsenal at Old Trafford. And in my opinion, unfortunately from an Arsenal perspective, a performance like that, especially after the 7-1 against PSV and some Arsenal fans getting a little too carried away after that game, a performance like this was coming, especially when you had Arsenal fans saying that Arsenal needed to have another performance like that against Manchester United and that this was going to be a comfortable win, an easy win. We needed to avenge the 8-2 that from the famous scoreline where Manchester United beat Arsenal 8-2. And going into a game, any game, especially a game against Manchester United where Arsenal haven't won back-to-back seasons in the league at Old Trafford in over 50 years. So anyone who was expecting this game to be an easy game, to be a blowout, a comfortable win for Arsenal, shows how little they know about the sport. And basically the fact that there are some people who believe that it doesn't matter what you say leading up to a game, and nothing you could say could impact the actual result of or outcome of the game. This game proved those people to be extremely wrong. Because, as I said, you had people saying we needed to avenge the 8-2 and all of that regard. And especially considering Arsenal still didn't have their they had got one of the attackers back in Gabriel Martinelli, who came on as a sub, but still no Saka, still no Havertz, still no Gabriel Jesus, and basically on that, as I said, a performance like this was coming, especially considering how Manchester United, who, yes, normally they don't sit back as much as they did this game, but this is actually something that Ruben Amorim needs to be praised with in terms of how many people criticize him for not adjusting his team shape or his team setup based on his performance this early in his tenure at Manchester United. And the thing is, yes, he made some tweaks to the system, but in my opinion, he actually still remained pretty entrenched in his principles, especially with the counterattacking that Manchester United were able to take advantage of when Arsenal were putting the fullbacks very high up into the Manchester United half, and it left Arsenal exposed in that regard. And the counter, which right before the end of the first half, is the main reason why Leandro Trossard fouls Bruno Fernandes on the edge of the box, because the fullbacks, Calafiori, especially Calafiori, given where Bruno Fernandes was running from, was very hot. Calafiori was way up ahead on the pitch in the Manchester United half. So that's why Trossard had to try to make up for that, and unfortunately he ended up committing the foul, and we all know what ended up happening. Bruno Fernandes scores an excellent free kick and gives Manchester United a 1-0 lead heading into halftime, which totally changed the momentum of the game, in my opinion, especially considering Arsenal didn't take advantage of the domination that they had in the first half when they were passing the ball back either and for. They were creating chances. The only problem is, as we all know, ever since Saka went out, and now especially with Havertz and then Jesus went out, Arsenal are struggling to put away these chances that they're creating, and the shots that they're creating a lot of times are either, at least especially in this game, were from outside the box in that regard. And because of that, as I said, Arsenal weren't able to take advantage of the amount of possession and time that they spent in the Manchester United half of the field. And same deal as well if you wanted to go even actually into the oppositions that they had, the touches that they had in the opposition box. And they weren't creating, they were creating, but they weren't finishing off the chances. And that's why I think, at least in my opinion, the criticism towards Martin Odegaard is a little unfair considering, especially in that first half and also portions of the second half, he was pulling the strings, being the maestro in that regard. If he creates these chances and no one finishes the chances, how, at least in my opinion, how is it his fault? Especially considering you had, in the past, you would have people criticize Olivier Giroud for not finishing off these beautiful chances that Mesut Ozil created for him. And a lot of times it's a similar sort of regard where people would put the blame on Ozil, which I thought was inappropriate at the time, considering if Giroud doesn't finish or someone else doesn't finish these chances, how is it the creator's fault? But at least that's what I said in my opinion. I think Odegaard is being a little unfairly criticized in my opinion. But as I said, unfortunately, Arsenal weren't able to take advantage of the domination that they had, especially in the first half. And then the momentum changed and the crowd, the Manchester United fans at Old Trafford after that goal from Bruno Fernandes, they eventually started to cheer and got into the game, and the atmosphere became a little more alive and also hostile towards Arsenal, especially after that goal. And then in the second half, Arsenal were able to create some more chances in that regard, but still it wasn't till the 73rd minute when Jurrien Timber crosses the ball, cuts the ball back to Declan Rice, and then Declan Rice beautifully hits the ball first time off the left post and into the back of the net, and which was a great finish. And he had several similar chances in that range of the box, either just outside the box or at the top of the box. This one was slightly towards the right of the top of the box, but he had several chances. There was a chance earlier in the game where Martin Odegaard kicked the corner kick right to him at the top of the box, and he tried to volley it in, but it went a little over the goal. And that's the thing with the fact that Arsenal still are lacking Bukayo Saka, no Jesus, no Havertz. You need players like Declan Rice to stand up, and he scored that goal. And the other thing is, especially about the goal, the talking point that, at least to me, I think is a little ridiculous and celebration is basically the celebration police coming out in force, is that a lot of people are being my opinion, too critical of Declan Rice for trying to shush and calm down the Manchester United crowd, especially since they have seemed to have forgotten that when he went over to take one of the corner kicks earlier in the game, it appeared, at least from the moment that I was watching, was kind of, they didn't really zoom in to tell, but it was hard to tell, but it appeared that the Manchester United fans may have thrown a water bottle or something at him. And so also, if you've heard a lot what happens whenever he takes corner kicks, a lot of times he gets abused by a lot of opposition fans, especially a lot of opposition fans oftentimes going too far, saying nasty stuff about his wife, which he has publicly come out and said it called out, and as well as other people have called out. So he gets hit with a water bottle, and people are saying nasty things to him when he takes the corner, and he scores a beautiful goal like that, and you expect him not to give it back to the Man United fans? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, and also the other part is people being like, you're 16 points behind, you're 16 points behind Liverpool, set to be 13 points about Liverpool. How could you not grab the ball and run it back? But these are also run it back and try to get the second goal. But then these are the same people that are getting all pissy and getting annoyed about how Mikel Arteta said that a couple of weeks ago said that Arsenal were still in the title race. So are you either in the title race or you're not? And the thing is that people want rivals and even unfortunately some Arsenal fans want Arsenal players and Arteta to say they're not in a title race, but then they also want them to, at the same time, act like they're in a title race. So that's why, at least in my opinion, it's a little hypocritical, especially considering people have been, as I said, been critical of any time an Arsenal player or even an Arsenal fan suggests that they're still in the title race, which, as I've said previously, I think the title race was over a while ago, especially after the West Ham defeat. But as I said, it's a little hypocritical in trying to play both, want them to protect, they get mad when they say they're in the title race, but then when they don't act like they're in the title race, they get angry. So that's why it's a little ridiculous. And as I said, mentioning the fact that the Manchester United fans were giving it to him, especially on whenever he was taking a corner, it's kind of, and especially as I said, it's Arsenal, Manchester United. It's a major rivalry. As I said, technically not a derby because it depends on your perspective of what a derby is. But some argue that it has to be a local rival, a local matchup for it to be a derby. But still, it's still a major rivalry. And as I said, you give it to the Man United fans give it to Declan Rice, and he gives it back to them, and then people get upset about it. And it's like, I understand the concept of people like, oh, you could still go and win the game, which, yes, that is true. But in the grand scheme of things, you give it to Declan Rice. You expect him not to respond back. But as I said, I think that's a little ridiculous with all of the hoopla and discussion about him celebrating. And as I said, I think that's more so just people being part of the celebration police, at least in my opinion. But as I said, unfortunately, a performance like this was coming, especially for considering, as I said, we still don't. Yes, they got Martinelli back, who I thought when he came on, he did okay. He had the things. He's still the thing. You could still tell that he wasn't necessarily fully fit, but I think the cameo that he did had at Old Trafford was actually a solid substitute appearance cameo, and we will have to see if he plays against PSV. But as I said, that's the next game for Arsenal, and Manchester United have the second leg against Real Sociedad. So we'll have to see what happens, especially for the Man United. I personally do not see PSV coming back from 7-1. So it's going to be Arsenal in the quarterfinals, either against Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid. But as I've said, the league has been over. So it's, as I said, it's a little disappointing that Arsenal went down 1-0, and especially giving away the cheap free kick from Trossard. And then David Raya, you could argue, didn't do so great in terms of saving that particular free kick. He was great on the saves later in the game, especially the Bruno Fernandes shot and the Mazwari shot in the second half. But again, that free kick, maybe he should have been a little more over to the right to save the ball, the free kick from Bruno Fernandes. But beyond that, David Raya saved Arsenal in the second half. Arguably, Man United could have scored a couple more goals, but as I said, David Raya saved Arsenal. But as I said, a performance like this was coming, especially since everyone knew that Man United were going to sit in a lower block, which is the formula to play Arsenal. Arsenal have struggled for years to break down low blocks, especially this season. So again, as I said, unfortunately, a result like this was result in performance like this was coming, and you can only hope now that Arsenal at least have a better performance against PSV and then against Chelsea in the weekend. But we'll have to see what ends up happening. Again, thanks for watching the video. I'd appreciate if you leave a like, comment, or subscribe. You could also check me out on my Twitter at @CliffSoccerZone. Again, thanks for watching the video. Take care.